Boom, awesome. So first of all, I want to say thank you to ChainLight for letting me come on and speak to you guys. And I think we've got a couple of really cool topics we're going to discuss today. I'll give you some background on myself quickly. I know I've got about maybe 30 minutes or so. So my name is Ty. I go as TYTAN.eth on Twitter. That's primarily my main mode of communication to the world, I guess, and yeah, whenever I share my thoughts. I've been in the space since 2017, so I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of really cool folks across the industry and really kind of discover all the different technologies, innovations that are being built in Web3. And with that, I've been able to keep a ear to the ground and understand the pulse of the industry. And we've also, my business partners and I, really in like 2020, we started building some products in the space. One of them is actually called SocialPass. We work with the Pudgy Penguins pretty closely, hence actually the reason that Brian and I were able to get connected. And of course, through that, there's a lot of other key connections that I've built through those relationships in general. And then beyond that, I also have domain experience in what we call NFT finance, which is essentially liquidity provisions for NFTs to deepen liquidity across the board using different types of DeFi protocols, leveraging NFTs as assets. So again, lots of really cool things that we're going to dive into today. I'm going to try to expand the deck that I have to give you guys the full 30 minutes. And I can definitely, I can talk. It's one of my skill sets. I'm really good at like talking about topics, about, sort of expanding them more than maybe they might seem. And I've also given you guys on these slides some images to look at, so you don't have to just look at me and my face and hear me. You can actually see what's happening in space. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and dive in. So the purpose of this presentation is to highlight the consumer products that are helping to scale Web3. I'm going to go ahead and just move some of these little buttons out of my way so that I can see. So the infrastructure has been built. The primary focus over the last few years has been, in terms of investment, in terms of product building, really around the infrastructure in the Web3 space, and less so on the consumer-facing application layers, meaning the interaction layers where retail consumers can kind of interact with, beyond just sort of like the data, the infrastructure, which has had needed some time to actually build. So with that being said, I don't know what the audience makeup is necessarily, the demographics. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with, a lot of the sort of Web3 industry, but just to give an overall perspective, there's a lot of growth even in a quote bear market. You can see some of the numbers here, but the most important number, in my opinion, is a number that a lot of even big banks are sort of highlighting, which is the tokenization of assets, or the projected value of tokenization of assets, which is projected to be about 16 trillion US dollars by 2030. This is, actually a number, or at least a relative number that's been provided by, like I said, a few banks, Bank of America being one of them, and Binance, of course, commenting on this, and various different valuation agencies also agreeing on the same sort of valuation of global assets. And so overall, we see the market expanding beyond what it is currently, and it's like very nascent state, which is mostly just these fungible tokens, some used for speculation, some used for utility, and then obviously non-fungible tokens as well, which are in the same category. So the primary issues that the industry has really faced, at least for the last few years, has mostly been a lot of scalability issues, the user experiences, meaning like UI, UX, the interaction layer, of course, and then the regulatory uncertainty. So we're obviously seeing a lot of the regulatory uncertainty issues currently. If you're sort of paying attention to the news as of recent, you might have seen CZ from Binance have to step down because of the US's sort of positioning on a lot of the international monetary sort of subjects. I'll just leave it at that. The user experiences have always been lacking in a lot of areas. There's usually a focus on smart contract development and not so much on the actual user experience, which has started to improve as of recent. More applications are focusing on the actual user experience and less so on just the liquidity for the applications. And then scalability, of course, that's an issue that infrastructure plays have tried to sort of scale and solve over the last few years. So we're making progress. So what's going to happen next is, of course, improve layer 2 experiences. I'll get into some of the recent layer 2 sort of pushes as of recent, improve wallet technologies, of course, and better regulatory clarity. Some of the other issues that have really plagued the industry are fractured liquidity. This has been one of the biggest problems, especially in a few of the industries that I'm in, notably like nfty, even DeFi. With DeFi, this issue was relatively solved in DeFi summer of 2020, which was, I think, I'm just making sure I'm still alive here, which was a pretty pivotal moment in 2020. Something similar is actually starting to happen in the NFT finance industry. There's been more of a collaboration between protocols to bring liquidity together. Also leveraging fungible token liquidity as sort of like a liquidity layer. I'll get into that as well. But in general, the issues have definitely been around like fractured liquidity, and then also sort of recycling the same users over and over again, month after month, which tend to be around 2,000 to 3,000 users, mostly in the NFT side. In the DeFi side, it's probably very similar because you just have a lot of the same sort of whales or power users that are often using these platforms. So with that being said, here's some of the expanding trends or topics that we can actually cover. So lots of cool things happening, actually. The expansion of Web3 IP, which has been fueled a lot by Pudgy Penguins. Of course, I'm biased. I'm a Pudgy Penguin, and so is Brian. And so we're both biased, but it's okay. I'm happy about a lot of the development that has happened on the Web3 IP side. Some of the expansion, and we'll get into it, of course, is through, a lot of the IRL in real life sort of merchandise, branding, licensing opportunities from these Web3 native IPs, meaning like Pudgy Penguins, obviously like Planosaurs, which is a Solana-based NFT collection we'll get into. You'll actually see some cool stuff from them. Pool Cats is starting to also start to improve their IP and expand it. And so a lot of cool things happening there. On the other side, we have social finance or SocialPass, which is a relatively new sort of trend. It was mostly fueled by friend techs, focused on acquiring TVL for, social monetization. So leveraging these social aspects or influencer aspects, of a person's identity to be able to create value and then trade that value. And that's something I think that's going to be increasingly bigger in Asia, especially because there is a big focus on, what we would call KOLs, influencers. And so I think that SocialPass is definitely going to continue to expand and improve. The friend tech experiment was sort of short-lived in a sense. Not to say that it's over, but the initial liquidity was seeded by a lot of rewards and referrals for using the platform early on. But sort of as things have progressed, it's gotten a little boring, I should say, a little stale. So we'll see if they can spice things up as time goes on. But as of right now, We'll kind of see how different projects come into space. NFT finance, of course, I mentioned that. NFT5, using NFTs as collateral, and through DeFi mechanics, being able to leverage that collateral to be able to expand the liquidity, obviously for personal use, but for a wider perspective, what it's going to do is it's really going to push a lot of volume through the space, through the NFT space more particularly. A lot of things that can come out of that: market making, which is not really utilized in the NFT space as a whole. It's something that I've started to pursue and work with different clients and vendors on, which I think is going to help a lot with volume, which tends to bring more traders. And the other side is also liquid staking derivatives, which is LST-Fi. So LST-Fi is not necessarily new, but it is very interesting because there's a lot of different protocols that are leveraging what we call ETH 2.0 staking to reward users with yield, which is in a form of derivative. So those are the main points here. We've got Blast, SocialPass logo there, which is one of our products, Friend Type of course, Lido, and then literally I think today or last night or so, Pudgy Penguins entered the Hot Topic stores, which is fairly popular in the US. And so then let's go ahead and take a look at the expansion of Web3. So you'll notice there's a couple different things going on here. There's case studies we can kind of look at with Pudgy Penguins, monetization of IP in the physical world. So like toys, books, arcade machines, even lots of different types of different assets that are being monetized using the IP. Really cool stuff coming out from Cool Cats, a new animation series. Definitely check it out. I thought it was actually pretty funny, pretty cool. There's also an increasing focus on the cute IP. I think people are realizing that Asia has a big affinity for that cute IP, so sort of more and more collections are focusing on that. Planosaur is actually in the middle here. They're actually doing some really cool stuff with like TikTok and shorter form animations, and so doing a really good job there. But in general, what we're seeing is an expansion of the IP beyond just Web3, and a focus on scaling the industry with reaching out to users outside of our bubble, right? Which is obviously really important. It's something that we haven't really been able to do for many years because of the types of applications that we're building. The types of applications being usually infrastructure or DeFi-oriented systems, which are really based around like math and science, and is very niche to most people. But these types of IPs can expand beyond just what we're used to, in sort of like the Web3 industry, and it allows us to create a gateway to Web2 users as well. Of course, MERP revenue streams, really cool stuff happening with individual licensing opportunities. So, for example, NFT here over on the left, this is created by a friend of mine in Thailand, who's essentially creating keys with licensed IP from different collections, like Pudgy Penguins, for example. Also new topics, so stuff for like focus, so energy and focus, of course, slapping a Bored Ape on there, and licensing that. So that's very cool. And of course, all the stuff Pudgy Penguins is doing. So then social finance, or SocialPass, which has been a really big focus as of late. So there's the monetization of social influence via the Tokener NFT, and that's the base level of what SocialPass is right now. There's a lot of different ways to leverage the networking or the sort of personal identity or social identity, either online or even in person. At SocialPass, we're experimenting with some ideas around this. Not saying that we're necessarily launching a token per se, but we are definitely looking in the direction of utilizing different tokens to be able to create TVL for crowdfunding of events, for example, or even using NFTs for decentralized IDs in the platform. These are some ideas that we're playing around with right now. Um, really cool things that are happening just in SocialPass, and I consider all this SocialPass because it's all on the social interaction layer, and there's possibilities to some sort of tokenize it, and then beyond tokenization, monetize it. So we're looking at like Friend Tech and Stars Arena for social monetization. Those are obviously two of the main platforms that got a lot of attention. Stars Arena got a little bit more attention for maybe the wrong reasons, at least after the initial takeoff, because there was a lot of drama and sort of hacks that sort of took place that gave it a lot of attention on Avalanche. And then Friend Tech has really been leading most of the TVL, probably because Paradigm and the backing that they have there helps to bring in a lot of users in TVL with the sort of possibility of rewards and airdrops and things like that. And then so for the other thing here, Web3 gated events, Token Proof and SocialPass have been really leading Web3 events. So, Token Proof has done a really good job working with like Bored Ape Yacht Club, for example. That's where they got their, big break, if you will. And then beyond that, they've been able to create a very closed loop ecosystem. So very exciting there. And then on the other side, SocialPass, what we've been able to do with Pudgy Penguins is event gating for the last 4 events for Pudgy Penguins, main events, New York City, Miami, actually coming up, Hong Kong, Singapore, Paris. So we've been all over the world, and we've actually made attendance to every single Pudgy Penguins event to ensure that we got a lot of the feedback from the users during these events. And then another really cool addition here is NFC RFID networking. So that sounds like a very long term, but essentially the idea is being able to use cards that have NFC chips in them to be able to network with people in person. This has become a more popular thing. Sleep, actually, here in the middle, they raised $5 million in their seed round. It's very exciting. But essentially, the idea is you can take maybe like an NFT, right? And you can use that as your representation when you're going to different events to network, because honestly, being behind an NFT on social media makes it very difficult to network with people when you go meet them in these events or conferences, because they don't know what you look like. But they do know what your NFT looks like. And of course, what you can do with those cards is actually tap phones to be able to, have a bunch of different social links pop up. And then, of course, they might recognize you or sort of know who you are after that. And so these are some of the things that are coming out in SocialPass right now. Obviously, monetization opportunities all around. I imagine that's one of the reasons why Sleek was able to raise $5 million in this environment, because there's probably some sort of token aspect involved, along with some of the other companies in this arena. And so, yeah, I mean, as you can see, SocialPass TVL trending upwards. We'll see how long it stays at this sort of, area, because a lot of that TVL might start moving into other things that we'll discuss. So then nfty.finance, this is obviously one of my domains of focus that I really enjoy. I work with many of the top NFT finance protocols. The idea here is that we can use DeFi mechanics to further leverage the asset value of an NFT as collateral to be able to get more out of it. So borrowing and lending has been one of the most popular use cases. So nfty.com, rk.xyz are the primary peer-to-peer protocols for this. MetaStreet is a great option for peer-to-pool. They also have liquid staking options embedded in their protocol, which is really cool. I noticed I have MetaStreet here twice. That's not bad. And you've got Blend as well. So Blend is a sort of spin-off from Blur. It's a very fast operating lending system, and it sort of incentivizes quick turnover for loans. So typically turnover on loans is usually a few days to weeks, if that. Meaning a lender can actually come in and they can sort of liquidate a loan, and then you have to, or the loan has to be picked up by another lender within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, that loan then just goes directly to liquidation, and there's nothing you can do about it, which is a little scary. So I don't recommend Blend to early nfty users. It's a bit more advanced, I would say. And then beyond that, we've got options and perps. So nftperp.xyz and wasabi.xyz. NFT Perp was one of the first NFT perps to pop onto the scene. They actually are starting to get an interesting audience from Vietnam and Thailand. There's been an increased interest from a lot of speculators in those regions, in Southeast Asia in particular. There's an interest in playing futures on NFTs, not having direct exposure. And so NFT Perp was a great option, but Wasabi.xyz, who I also work with, they started to actually launch their own physically settled NFT Perp, meaning they actually have collateral to back up the perpetual futures that are being traded, which might be very important because of the volatility of the assets themselves, the NFTs themselves. So that's something that just launched actually recently, or at least they announced that they would move in that direction. I believe they're coming out with that on testnet soon, so that's super exciting. And then there's a liquidity layer called Flooring Protocol, which many of you may have seen. Flooring Protocol, essentially, they're using the what's called FLC token, the Flooring token, to be able to create liquidity for these nfty protocols and also for themselves. Using high yields to attract users to this protocol and then to other protocols as well is a pretty attractive strategy because most people seek yield in this industry and want to be able to quickly find interesting protocols that incentivize their liquidity. They want to know where to put it, and Flooring Protocol helps to incentivize that with their high yields through tokens. And then this is just the nfty volume just on borrowing and loan and lending alone. So there's obviously other protocols outside of this, but this is really the top. As you can see, Blend is really taking a lot of that volume since they began early this year around May. They've really taken the top spot, if you will, since May, and the reason is primarily because when you support liquidity in the platform, you're earning Blur tokens. So the primary focus for most of the protocols moving forward, from what I understand, will be to leverage some sort of incentive mechanism, which is usually a token, to be able to further drive more liquidity to their platforms. But I think as time evolves, as time goes on, we're going to see less of this fractured liquidity and more cohesiveness amongst protocols. This is a very important development as of recent. LSDFi. The reason that it's so important is because of a new entrance by Blur with the Blast L2. I'm sure many of you have heard of it if you stay on Twitter like me. But LSDFi is essentially using synthetic derivative tokens that come from ETH 2.0, where you can essentially stake your ETH 2.0 and receive these synthetic tokens to earn yield from ETH 2.0, but still be able to trade your ETH, your staked ETH. So that's called STE. For those that are wondering. And so it's just a way that you can essentially still be liquid by still earning your yield from ETH 2.0. And so a lot of different protocols have taken advantage of this. Lido is the primary protocol that's really done well with this. But there's other like Rocket Pool and Spark that have also taken advantage of the ETH 2.0 staking. But the reason I wanted to mention Blast here is because what they've essentially done with their L2, which announced just yesterday or so, is they've taken TVL liquidity that users have provided, which in the last 24 to 48 hours has been about $230 million from the 37,000 users plus, which is extremely impressive for any protocol in this industry. In the span of time, they've been able to acquire TVL. And what they've done is they have essentially said, okay, give us your liquidity and we will earn you yield on chain. Now, as of right now, what that means is they're taking liquidity in a Gnosis or Gnosis multi-signature vault, and they are staking that into Lido. So they've actually done this. I think it was in a few hours ago. They actually sent a giant transaction to Lido to stake this liquidity that people have given them, and that's how they're giving the on-chain yield. The layer 2 itself is actually not even available or out yet, but it is something that they intend to do. So they say. And so liquid staking has become very interesting. This is a new topic or a new trend, I guess, for a lot of NFT folks who aren't used to LSDFi, but this has been going on for some time now. It's sort of just now exposing to NFT traders, which of course usually come from Blur and Blend. So Paradigm through Blur, Blend, and Blast have really exposed a lot of the NFT audiences to really like a lot of DeFi and LSDFi strategies that the DeFi folks have been very familiar with, for some time. So I think in general, it's actually a good thing in a sense, but some people will obviously argue that maybe it was a little too early for their announcements since they don't actually have a layer 2 yet, but I digress. And so, in terms of the challenges and future outlook, some adoption challenges. Obviously, cryptocurrencies are volatile. That's a major concern as always, or maybe not, depending on how you look at it. If you like the volatility, if you're a trader, or you like the volatility because you like the arbitrage opportunities, and that's something that's maybe not so much of a concern. But essentially where we're at now is the infrastructure has been built and the interface layers are being built on top of that infrastructure. The high yields are attracted to retail participants in cases like Blast, L2, LSDFi. Something I didn't even mention in this particular presentation is RWAs and tokenized sort of bonds and things like that. We're also getting on-chain yield from that as well. But I know I'm running low on time here, so I will go ahead and wrap up. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do questions here, but if you guys have any questions or if you want to DM me or follow me, learn more about a lot of the cool stuff that's happening in the space, feel free to scan the QR code, and I can obviously try to get to you whenever you follow me, message me, etc. If I don't follow you, I'll make it a message request. So just like reply to any of my tweets, and I'll see it, just so I know that you followed me and not a bot. So hopefully that's helpful for everybody to understand what's going on in the space. And then if there's any questions or if time for that, let me know.